What's up, everybody? This is a little different, but we're gonna be checking out um, this attack. This is a pretty good guy. I've watched him for a little bit. The last couple conflict. It's not an official. Um, it's just an independent guy using a green screen, but it's not like a real news channel. But he gives legit information. That's crazy. Maybe that's just you saw that from the Russian military media sometimes, getting ahead of the. I don't know where he gets all his webcam footage from. Give me something to drink real quick. No way it's over. Alright, we back. So, no, he hasn't made. I read somewhere where he's in like camp, one of the I don't know if it's Camp David or what, but he was in a military base. Netanyahu's in the air. Can you imagine what's going on in the radar on those ships right now in the room? How chaos is probably. I mean, I know it's probably like organized chaos, but I bet it's so much chaos right now. I'm sure they're kind of busy, dude. There's an attack going on in the country right now. I think they're a little bit busy. And I'm not worried about updating us right now, okay? I think it's understandable too. No, they said that he left. I saw it. He left and went to a. I said 13 minutes ago. Whoops. Oh, he's on CNN. Dude, you're on CNN. Don't believe any of this. You need to go to like outside the U.S. news media. Go to Telegram or something. Don't be using CNN. That's for sure. I like to use. And you can't hear this stuff. I'll fix that. Sorry. Let me fix this. That should be better. Should be able to hear the sound now. So I don't pay for
waiting to hear more from Israel. Are there still missiles in the sky on the way to Israel? Is Israel going to attack tonight?
I just met with my national security team.
Going to respond with attack on Iran tonight? We just don't know right now. We are waiting to see. I'm checking for updates for you. Not hearing anything new at the moment. According to Al Jazeera, an Iranian news agency claims that an Israeli air base in the Negev desert was successfully targeted. Is that true? I don't know. I do not have any live cameras from Iran.
As a subscriber.
Hold on
Oh,
a
I can
second.
subscribe.
Give me one moment.
Yeah, I should subscribe already.
Give me one moment here. Let me just do this real quick. Get this. Hold on.
I was playing. I thought I was subscribed already.
Hang on. One moment. Here, heading towards Israel. Or not. We've heard an unconfirmed report that Israel is planning a military response.
After 5 minutes.
Is that true? I have no idea. So we're just waiting to hear more. We have not heard from the Israeli military this attack is over. It is 3 a.m. Israel time right now. So what is going to happen with this?
This ad, that's the problem with this map thing. These ads are terrible.
N12 News Israel says Netanyahu and Biden will talk in the next few minutes. Okay? Again, N12 News says Biden and Netanyahu will talk in the next few minutes. I'm just waiting, like with all of you, to hear more. I'm checking various sources here, but at the moment, just waiting to hear more and get more updates at 3:02 a.m. Israel time. 3:02 a.m.
Iran will give a reciprocal and proportionate response to any regional country that is used by Israel and the U.S. for attacking Iran. So they're trying to
generally do not know.
To not use their airspace and stuff like that.
This attack is over if it's still ongoing.
No, it's still ongoing. I was really surprised Hezbollah didn't come get an attack at the same time. But maybe they're going to come after. They was hoping to come in after the drones and stuff hit. Then they was planning on coming in. And they've thwarted that maybe. Man, the ads on this thing is ridiculous.
Kind of a weird moment right now. We just don't know. We just don't know where this is going tonight. Oh, the IDF is speaking now. Right? The IDF is speaking now. I don't have it in English. The Israeli Defense Force is speaking right now. Hold on. All right. So the IDF is speaking now. Let me get a translation of what the IDF is saying. All right. Hang on a second. The IDF is speaking right now. All right.
Okay, we'll put it on the screen.
Israeli Defense Force is speaking right now. I don't know what he's saying because it is in Hebrew. Okay. So let me try to get you some reporting on what the IDF is saying right now. Okay. IDF spokesman says there was a hit. The event is not over yet. Roy Case, translating, says the IDF spokesman, the event is not over yet. Okay? The event is not over yet. That was just said by the IDF spokesman. The event is not over yet. He just said it.
Iran funds, trains, and arms terror proxies across the Middle East and beyond. Iran-backed Hamas started this war on October 7th.
We'll see what else he said. He's speaking right now. I'm waiting to see some translation of what he's saying.
And since then, Iran-backed Middle East.
But I just saw that posted by Roy Case in Israel. Okay, IDF spokesperson says one army base in southern Israel was attacked, but there's only minor damage. That's from Mira Kraus. IDF spokesman says dozens of projectiles, I don't know if it's drones or missiles or both, were intercepted outside Israeli territory. The absolute majority, large majority of the shots that reached Israel were intercepted, he said. That's from Mariv Online. He is speaking right now. But it's not in English. It's not in English, so I'm giving you translation of it. The IDF confirms several Iranian missiles hit an IDF base. There is minor damage. Okay? So that is something he said. So minor damage at an Israeli base from several missiles that hit. That's what the IDF spokesperson just said. Okay, IDF spokesperson. More than 200 aerial threats were launched at us. Dozens of cruise missiles and drones were intercepted outside Israel's territory. The absolute majority of the ballistic missiles that entered were successfully intercepted. Okay? That's from GLZ radio translation of what he's just saying right now.
That's what you say at the fireworks halftime show.
Yes, and again, damage detected at Israeli base in the south, only minor damage. The event is not over yet. That is what the Israeli Defense Force just said. That's a post from I-24 News English. So the Israeli Defense spokesperson is speaking now, but said the event is not over yet. Oh, there are breaking news. Look at this. IDF spokesperson. Right here. The event is not over yet. There are more threats on the way. At the moment, the Air Force planes are intercepting cruise missiles outside the country's borders. Wow, that is a new statement from the IDF. IDF spokesperson moments ago. That's from GLZ radio, that translation. The event is not over yet. There are more threats on the way. At the moment, the Air Force planes are intercepting cruise missiles outside Israel's borders. Wow. Breaking news. Just said by the IDF spokesperson right there. So cruise missiles are still flying at Israel. They're being intercepted. There are constantly. Sorry, they're being currently. The Israeli Air Force planes, I assume. Well, maybe it's U.S. and RAF too. I don't know, but again, the Israeli defense spokesperson just said the event is not over yet. There are more threats on the way. At the moment, the Air Force planes are intercepting cruise missiles outside Israel's
Frying
borders.
force is on.
He's still
What? That's just got to be some kind of like AI thing. Okay, so he's not on back to here.
the Israeli
I
military
could do that
confirmed
background, by
that
the way.
ballistic and cruise missiles are being used in the attack against Israel, along with attack drones. There you go.
I think they use
That's
the
from Trey
drones
Hicks.
to
So,
kind of to
just to
absorb
repeat,
the
the IDF spokesperson said that there was
the
slight
missile
damage
defense,
caused
and then
as several I believe he
missiles are
said several
supposed to go
missiles
in.
hit an Israeli base in southern Israel, but causing slight damage. And he said the event is not over yet. There are more threats on the way. At the moment, Air Force planes are intercepting cruise missiles outside of Israel's borders. So that is going on right now. Happening right now. Let me just show you some. Let me just do this real quick. Missiles outside of. Let me get you a live shot back up. There is a live shot of Tel Aviv. Again, I am in Florida. I am not in my studio. I'm doing this all on my laptop. I'm sorry it doesn't look and sound the way it normally does. Much harder for me to do it this way, but I'm just trying to do it so I can bring you coverage while I'm on the road. So thank you for your understanding. Again, the event is not
There
over.
we go. I had to recategorize it out of the gaming.
Oh, I have a view. Let me show you. Let me go to the AFP live camera. That's from AFP right there. Okay, bringing you live coverage. Guys, I'm going to just take 30 seconds here, or about a minute. I need 1 minute. I'm going to leave the camera up for 1 minute. Give me just 1 minute, okay? I'm going to disappear off your screen for 1 minute. I'm going to leave the footage up for a minute. I'm going to come back in 1 minute, and you'll see me in just 1 minute. So thanks in advance. I'll be back. 1 minute break. Coming back in 1 minute. 1 minute break right now.
I'll keep you entertained while he's gone with my commentary. This is a nice, pretty city. It is a nice looking city. Some clouds overhead. It's probably pretty good for them. What was that just flew through there? Like a shadow that went through here. I don't know if it was an artifact or what. Not really sure. Doesn't look like it's very much going on. I mean, I know there's a lot going on, but from a camera standpoint, not a lot we can see. I'll try to look for some stuff over here and pull it over when we. Let's see. I'll pull this over here. We'll have a base explosion scene in parts of Jerusalem. There are explosions over the old city in Jerusalem. The U.S. military shot down some Iranian drones as it's trying to shoot down the missiles. Air sirens sounded across Israel. The Iranian mission to the UN said that after tonight's attack, the matter can be deemed concluded unless there is more violence. So Iran is trying to say, we will attack you, but don't hit us back, and then we will call it even. But somehow I don't think that's true. What Trump say about it? Genocide Joe. They're not wrong.
Let's go now to NBC News chief correspondent Richard Engel, who is live from us in Jerusalem. Richard, we're going to pick up the coverage where you were just discussing the situation with Andrea Mitchell. We're showing our viewers these images of the skies over Jerusalem. I'm not sure if you're able to see those images, but give us a sense of what you are able to see around you and what the night sky or the early morning sky in Jerusalem looks like.
So the pictures I believe you're looking at, and I can't share your screen right now because I'm just standing on a rooftop near the old city in Jerusalem at the moment, but a short while ago here, probably about 10, 15 minutes ago, and it lasted for roughly 20 minutes, perhaps 30 minutes, there was a lot of activity. We saw what looked like rockets, flares flying through the sky, coming from areas all around Jerusalem in multiple directions, and they were many of them were right over the old city. Behind me, you see the walls of the old city, the part that is the most holy, the most sacred in this city, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is, where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is, where the Wailing Wall is, the most important space for the three great monotheistic religions on the planet. And a short while ago, there was an air war over the old city with these flares flying, dozens of them in the sky at the same time, exploding. There was an air raid siren in Jerusalem. So clearly there was a perceived threat. We couldn't see a drone. We couldn't see exactly what the air defense systems were reacting to, but we did see several of these yellow streaking rockets that were moving through the sky quite slowly, in fact, explode as it seemed like they were trying to take something out, to try and knock out a target, potentially one of those drones. And it was roughly at the same time when Israel had predicted that the drones launched by Iran would be entering Israeli airspace. So that was the scene a short while ago in Jerusalem. But since we've been on air with you, it's been quiet here.
Richard, as far as the anticipation of this evening and how it has played out, walk us through what we had learned about what Iran was capable of doing, what Iran had signaled it was willing to do in response to Israel's attack against its diplomatic compound. Earlier this week, you had the Israeli foreign minister threatening that now, if Iran did in fact cross this threshold and attack Israel directly, that Israel would do so in kind. What have you heard about Israel's plan of attack at this point in time?
Well, I think it's still a state of assessment.
I don't know, man.
This country
Iran might
is
not be
now
able to get in
at its
there.
highest state of
We'll see.
readiness. It is actively trying to defend the country,
Right
defend the
now, it doesn't
citizenry.
look like they're able to
Just a short
penetrate.
while ago, there was another update from the Israeli military speaking directly to the Israeli people. For the last 6 months here, there have been many air raid sirens. People have gotten used to them. They don't always obey them. And the Israeli military it's been signaling to the people, take this threat seriously, act differently, go into a shelter. The next 2 days are going to be very uncertain, and take this seriously for the next 2 days. So they banned gatherings of over 1,000 people. They've stopped school. They've canceled all school, and this place is now at its highest level of military readiness. All the defense systems are on. The U.S. military is working closely with the Israeli military. The head of CENTCOM was just here coordinating this kind of action. Whether this leads to a regional war, I think really depends on what happens over the next 24 to 48 hours. Will this just be more of a symbolic response from Iran, which is at this stage mostly what we've been seeing, because Iran announced that these attacks were going to come, then it launched the drones. Takes hours for the drones to arrive. The Israelis have sophisticated air defense systems, which we've seen. They have allies, powerful allies, including the United States and other NATO allies. But if it goes further, and if they do, as they promised to, use ballistic missiles, use cruise missiles, some of these get through, they cause casualties, they cause a lot of damage. Israel has already said it will respond in kind, or even to a greater extent, and we could be in a very different situation. So what we know right now is the Israeli military is completely focused on this and is telling people, don't think that this is just like you've gotten used to for the last 6 months. This is different. But they are also putting a time frame on it. The Israelis are saying, give this until Monday night, and then let's reassess. That's how long these restrictions have been put in place. That's how long they're closing the schools, closing the Air Force. So these next 48 hours, I think, are quite volatile, quite sensitive.
Richard, we're talking about this being an inflection point. I know you have been going to Israel since October 7th, years well before that. But in the context of the past 6 months, for those like yourself and others who have been on the ground, walk me through the evolution of how we got to this point. Was this direct confrontation between Israel and Iran inevitable? Was this the trend that was going? I know Israeli voices, we're going to hear from some later on in the show, have been warning that things were not trending in the right direction as the war in Gaza dragged on. But give me the readout over the past 6 months of how we got to this point of a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran.
In many ways, we got here almost on the first day when Hamas crossed in to Israel, when it broke out of the Gaza Strip, and thousands of Hamas fighters, we now know, and entered Israel and carried out their massacre and dragged back hostages, some of whom are still in Gaza. Iran immediately justified the attack, immediately blamed Israel for causing the underlying circumstances that led Palestinians, Hamas, to want to carry out an attack of that nature. And quickly, we've seen Hezbollah, Iranian proxies like the Houthis taking a fight to Israel, but not from Iran directly. So Iran was involved.
And that guy's 1 minute. Completely off. All right. Let's see if he even looks like he's paying attention. He's talking. She's confused and don't agree with what he's saying. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on too. He's listening.
Joining us now is NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Richard, what are you seeing now?
So things have been developing here in Jerusalem, Andrew, over the last few minutes. It just stopped a moment ago, but I have a feeling it will start up again any second or in the next few minutes. So I am in Jerusalem. Behind me here is the old city. You can make out the old city walls. And a short while ago, we heard the air raid siren warning people to get off the streets. And now there are very few people still.
What is that? That don't work, but anyway, let's see. Really not a lot going on. That would be more than this right now. Let's see. I think it's just so early. People's right in the middle of the things. They're not ready to update everybody yet. Iran warns U.S.
More than
to
60%
stay
of
away
sales on Amazon
as
come
America
from independent
shoots
sellers
down
like Daniel and
drones.
Eileen in Apopka, Florida. When they started their small business, finding customers was prickly.
The plants really piled up.
So they turned to Amazon with free marketing tools to get the word out. And out and out. Now their business is really...
Hopefully that doesn't get me a freaking copyright. Iran's mission to the United Nations argued that the country's missiles, drones fired toward Israel were justified, warning the U.S. to stay away. I wonder how many drones they shot down. The Zionist regime aggression. I guess I'll spread that. So these are the drones. Let's check. Let's do that. Let's check Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera. Yeah.
Proxies inside Iraq would actually be involved. We don't yet have an answer, a clear answer to that question. What we know at this hour is that none of these groups has claimed to have taken part in any of the retaliatory strikes towards Israel in the past several hours. We have heard from the leader of one of those groups, a group called Kata'ib Sayyid al-Shuhada, in which on social media he praised the attacks by Iran, saying that his group supported those attacks. But nobody has said that they have been taking part in any of these attacks. And that's where a lot of the tension has been coming from. And the timing is very interesting right now. You could argue that the timing of all this couldn't be worse for the Iraqi Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. He actually just yesterday left Iraq heading to Washington so that he could meet with U.S. President Joe Biden on Monday, the first time he would meet with the U.S. leader since taking power in Iraq. He would like to see bilateral relations with the U.S. strengthened, but he would also like to see a firm timetable come up with so that he could see a drawdown of U.S. troops in Iraq. All of that a question right now, because the last thing the U.S. would want to do if they sense that Israel is under threat from groups in Iraq is to withdraw their forces from Iraq. So it's all very complicated right now. We should also just mention, Darren, one other thing is that in the past hour, we have started seeing reports emerge from local media in northern Iraq, in Erbil, saying that there were loud explosions heard in areas close to the U.S. consulate. Not that there was any attack, but there were loud explosions heard. Some people attributing those explosion sounds to potentially coalition forces intercepting a missile that was heading from Iran towards Israel. There are videos that are purporting to show that missile and perhaps a drone being shot down. And also there were reports that sirens were activated in and around the U.S. consulate in Erbil. We're waiting for more details to emerge. We are still trying to get comment from any Iraqi authorities about what has transpired over the course of the past few hours and how it might affect Iraq's security situation in the days to come, and we'll get you those details as we have them.
Yeah, Mohammed, just a final thought to you before you go. I mean, as you say, the timing of this is significant because the Iraqi Prime Minister is making this trip to Washington to speak to President Biden, to also talk about U.S. troop reductions. Let me ask you, what is the risk now then facing U.S. assets, facing U.S. troops, given Iran's retaliatory strike against Israel?
Well, there are U.S. bases in Iraq. There are U.S. bases in Syria. Of course, these bases have consistently, over the course of the past several years, come under attack by these Iran-backed and Iran-affiliated proxy groups and paramilitary groups inside of Iraq. It's only really since February that there has been sort of this ceasefire, nothing official, but essentially these groups not wanting to expand any of the hostilities and not wanting to instigate any further clashes, and then the U.S. not retaliating any further. Of course, the U.S. knows there's always a heightened risk towards their troops, towards their military assets in Iraq and in Syria. They are always on guard. And one of the ways this all gets very complicated right now is that the Iraqi Prime Minister has for a while now said that they really need to see the U.S. commit to a timeline for the reduction of those troops in Iraq. This is a time of rising anti-U.S. sentiment in Iraq because there have been U.S. strikes against these paramilitary groups in Iraq. So it is tense. The Prime Minister came to power through the backing of Iran-linked groups in Iraq. He is treading a very fine line. He wants to make sure that the relationship is solid with the U.S. He also wants to make sure that the relationship is copacetic with Iran. So that's going to be a very fine line for him to navigate, and that's one of the reasons he was going to D.C. But right now, there's no indication that that meeting would be delayed or that it would be canceled, but clearly there's going to be a lot more to discuss at a time of such heightened tension in this region, and it might be quite difficult for the U.S. at this particular time if they think that Israel is facing potentially more threats from groups inside of Iraq especially. It would be a very difficult time for the U.S. to commit to drawing down troop levels even further in this region. Darren?
All right, Al Jazeera's Mohammed Jamjoom reporting live there from the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. Mohammed, thank you. Well, as we've been telling you, Lebanon has closed its airspace as well. For more on that, let's go to Ali Hashem, who joins us from Tyre. That's in the south of Lebanon. Ali, so I guess the big question now will be how much more will Iran's proxies like Hezbollah escalate the crisis? I mean, we saw that huge rocket barrage from Hezbollah into northern Israel a day or so ago. So how are things then likely to play out where you are now that Iran has responded?
Well, Darren, in fact, there were also other barrages today from Lebanon towards Israel. One, just like a few hours from this time, Hezbollah attacked a air defense base in the Golan with tens of rockets. And it was thought that this is part of the attempts to divert the attention of the air defenses towards another another target. However, it was clear now after a big amount of time has passed. It's clear now that this attack was completely an Iranian attack, and that the allies or the backed groups, if they played a role, it was just a supportive role, but they didn't launch anything. And at least from here, from Lebanon, where we are, nothing was part of this huge amount of ballistic missiles that was launched towards Israel. Nothing was launched from Lebanon. Now, of course, over here in Tyre, where we are, we saw a lot of missiles and a lot of interceptions, because as you know, we're very close to the border. We're like 20 kilometers from the border. And of course, the Israeli anti-missile system is functional here. So there were several ballistic missiles intercepted in the skies above us here. But in general now, is it going to be, this is the big question, is it going to be business as usual and back to the normal fronts that were active since the 8th of October? Or this is going to be another day, a different day? And how then those allies or proxies or groups backed by Iran are going to react to an Israeli attack on Iran, if there is going to be one in retaliation to today's attack? And how is this going to play within this regional situation? There is a serious regional tension already going on. Is it going to go farther than that?
Yeah, Ali, that's an important point you make. Let me just ask you just a final thought. I mean, how much fear is there then in Lebanon that Hezbollah, being a proxy of Iran, could drag Lebanon back into war with Israel? Because there are many within Lebanon, as you know, I mean, you cover Lebanon for us, for Al Jazeera. There are many in the country who don't want a war with Israel. They don't want to see an escalation.
Well, Darren, we are already in war. And since the 8th of October, there is a war situation. Now, we can say that it's limited to military targets on both sides, despite the fact that there are more than 60 Lebanese civilians who were killed over the past 6 months. But in fact, this is a war situation, whereas on daily basis there are attacks, Israeli airstrikes on different areas in Lebanon, and in the depth of 100 kilometers towards the Bekaa Valley, Hezbollah attack in Israel, also extending or expanding the front towards Syria, the Syrian Golan. So we are already in a situation of war here in Lebanon. Therefore, the big question, concern here is that this is going to expand and become an all-out war, which is the main issue and everyone is really concerned about. And you mentioned closing the airport. I spoke to the Minister of Works and Transportation. He said that this was an attempt by him in coordination with the Speaker of the Parliament and the Prime Minister to try as much as possible to, isolate Lebanon and contain this situation, whereas the airport, the flights, all these things shouldn't be affected. And in fact, Lebanon can't really tolerate that. But at the end, Lebanon is part of this whole situation.
All right, Ali Hassan reporting there from Tyre in southern Lebanon. Ali, we'll come back to you a little bit later. Thank you for the time being. But joining us now live from Washington, D.C. is Trita Parsi, the Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute. That's a U.S. think tank. He's also the former president of the Iranian-American Council. Trita, always good to have you on Al Jazeera. I think it's the first time we're talking to you about tonight's developments. Let me start by asking you then, Trita, what's your response to this retaliatory strike by Iran on Israel? I mean, Iran says, look, the matter is concluded. Israel says, no, it's not. The threat is still ongoing.
I think it's quite clear just by the size and the scope of this attack that this was primarily aimed at enabling the Iranians to save face, to show that they did something, that they deliberately violated Israel's red line, because the Israelis said that they would view an attack from Iranian soil as something that would further escalate the situation. But they've also done it in a manner that clearly puts an end to it. If they really wanted to inflict far greater damage on Israel, there would have been a far larger number of ballistic missiles, as well as drones not shot from Iran, but much closer to Israel in order to make sure that they would get there faster. They didn't choose to do this. They did something to be able to say that this is now concluded. And if Israel then decides to act again, then the Iranians will try to portray that as a deliberate escalation by the Israelis that further widens this conflict and essentially shift the blame back onto the Israelis. The question really is, will Biden do something here to put an end to the Israeli action? Remember, he said don't to the Iranians. Will he ever say don't to the Israelis? He hasn't done that so far.
Yeah, and what do you make then of the US response? I mean, as you say, Biden said don't. The Iranians went ahead anyway. What more should the Americans be doing now? Are they likely to calibrate the Israeli response to this Iranian attack?
Well, the United States did not condemn the Israeli attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. If it had, and if it had not stood in the way of the UN Security Council condemning it as a whole, then it would have had some credibility with Iran asking it to stand down and not retaliate. And there are historical examples in which actually the Iranians did when the UN Security Council acted firmly. In this case, however, the United States has actively supported Israel. It has helped shoot down some of these drones. So it certainly has the credibility to ask Netanyahu not to expand this conflict further. The problem, of course, is that fundamentally, Netanyahu has an interest in widening and broadening the war. Biden.
All right. Well, apologies for that. We were
lost him.
Talking to Trita Parsi there in Washington about the Iranian response. If we can, we'll try and go back to him a little bit later if we can. But a little bit to say.
Together with our allies and partners across the region, we are operating at this very moment to defend Israel from Iran's attack. So far, we have intercepted the vast majority of incoming missiles by Israeli systems. So far, we have intercepted and are continuing to intercept dozens of attack drones as well as cruise missiles and ballistic missiles outside of Israel's border. A number of Iranian missiles fell inside Israeli territory, causing minor damage to a military base with no casualties. Only one little girl has been hurt, and we hope she will be well.
All right, well, let's go live now to Gabriel Elizondo at the United Nations headquarters in New York. So, Gabriel, just listening to Daniel Hagari there, the Israeli military spokesperson. And we understand now the Israelis are asking for a Security Council meeting. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. A lot of new information is coming in here at UN headquarters as we speak. And the latest information that we're getting is that the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, has sent a formal letter to the president of the Security Council. That would be Vanessa Fraser, who's the ambassador to the Security Council. From the country of Malta. They hold the presidency of the council this month of April, and that Israel is formally requesting that the Security Council hold an emergency meeting on Iran's drone strikes against Israel. Now, Israel is not a member of the Security Council, so it would the formal request would have to come from a current member of the Security Council. We've been reaching out to Malta. We're trying to get some more information to see if Malta is going to be scheduling an emergency meeting on this. But in his letter to Malta, the Israeli ambassador says, and I'll read just part of it, he says, course, today Iran has launched a direct attack from within its territory of more than 200 UAVs, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles towards Israel in clear violation of the UN Charter and international law. Iran has also publicly taken pride in the attack. The attack is a severe and dangerous escalation. And then the letter partially goes on to say that the gravity and volume of the attacks are unprecedented and are a flagrant violation of Israel's sovereignty, of international law, and of the Security Council resolutions. Iran poses a direct threat to international peace and brazenly violates the UN Charter and Security Council resolution. That's part of what was said in the letter sent from the Iranian mission to the Security Council president. Now we're just waiting to see if Malta, the president of the Security Council, will schedule this emergency meeting, and if so, when.
Yeah, Gabe, let's just go back to the Israelis, because it is ironic, isn't it, Gabe? Because Israel isn't a big fan of the UN, so it seems odd that they now want the UN to intervene.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is a sort of part and parcel for how Israel operates with the UN. Gilad Erdan, the ambassador, also posted on Twitter just not too long ago as well, since Iran's response happened. He said, Antonio Guterres, Iran has violated the UN Charter and has shown that it is a threat to global peace and security. Where is your voice, Antonio Guterres? Where is your condemnation? Wake up. That was a little over an hour ago. Listen, Israel has been incredibly critical of the United Nations. In fact, this same Israeli ambassador to the UN has called for the Secretary General to resign in shame because of how Israel thinks he is handling the situation in Gaza. So, but listen, Israel will use the UN for how it wants to use the UN to its advantage, and you clearly see that they want to elevate this situation, and they're saying that this is a violation of the UN Charter. Interestingly enough, though, in Iran's
understandably enough, I mean, this is really slanted toward
Iran says their response is in line with the UN Charter. Article 51,
really
which says
pro-Iran,
any member state that is attacked,
against Israel,
in the case of Iran, it was their diplomatic mission attack on April 1st in Damascus, has a right to respond. That's in the UN Charter, the right to response, of course, Article 51.
It's not
So,
100%
now Israel is clearly using it to their advantage, but the big picture here is will the Security Council call for an emergency meeting, and if so, when it will happen? We should probably hear from Malta on this probably within the next hour or so this evening, because if they decide to hold a council meeting on Sunday, we'd have to get notice of that probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Gabe, just a final thought to you before you go. You were telling us earlier that the UN boss, Antonio Guterres, has been speaking. What's he been saying?
Yeah, that's right. He put out a statement. It said he strongly condemns the serious escalation represented by the large-scale attack launched on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran this evening. I call for an immediate cessation of hostilities. The statement from the Secretary General went on to say, and I'm deeply alarmed about the very real danger of devastating region-wide escalation. I urge all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid any action that could lead to major military confrontations on multiple fronts in the Middle East. And the statement is concluded by saying, I have repeatedly stressed that neither the region nor the world can afford another war. That statement from the Secretary General was put out just within the last hour or so. Clearly, the Secretary General has been very concerned about escalation. In fact, on April 1st, when Israel launched its attack on the Iranian diplomatic mission in Damascus, the Secretary General also put out a statement condemning that incident. And he also spoke on the phone with Iran's foreign minister at the time. So he's been deeply engaged in this for the last several days now, knowing that this very well could be a possibility, knowing that in Article 51 of the UN Charter, Iran does have a right to respond to an attack on their territory. So the Secretary General saw I think probably saw a little bit of the writing on the wall of what potentially could be happening. What we are seeing happening right now, he's basically calling on all parties to restraint because he is really worried about a spillover effect from Israel's war on Gaza. And he's been talking about this for months now. Well, this spillover effect is very much happening. It's no longer a worry. Could it happen? It very much is happening.
Yeah, it
right
absolutely
now.
is. Gabe Elizondo, live for us there at UN headquarters in New York. Gabe, thank you. Let's bring in back David DeRoche. He's an associate professor at the National Defense University. Joins us live from Washington, D.C. David, good to have you back with us. So then, just remind our viewers your response first on this retaliatory attack by Iran against Israel. How surprised are you, David, that Iran used a direct attack rather than via its proxies?
It's really surprised. I think what happened was I misunderstood the level of pride in Iran and the fact that Iran felt that it had to establish a deterrence mechanism against Israel. I felt that that was a risk that Iran would not do. It seems that the Iranian leaders are determined not just to take action, but to be seen to take action. What that indicates to me is that there's considerations of pride and prestige that are divorced from strategy and tactical utility, which may indicate a more dangerous era than we thought.
David, you're here to give us a sort of military perspective on assets and what's being used. So what more do we know then about the Shahed drones that were heading towards Israel? Many of them we think have been shot down, but just talk to us about their range, their speed, warheads, their payloads, etc.
Yeah, good question. So the most important part is the payload. The payload's about 50 kilograms of high explosives, but the explosives have copper penetrating plates that are not just on the ends, but also on the sides. And there's also around the side of the warhead, metal fragment that's sort of in like a little band that can create damage. And so what you have is, by military standards, a relatively small weapon that's not capable of any great penetration of a hardened military target. But if it lands in a thing like we've seen the Russians using this against electrical power stations in Ukraine, it can cause a great amount of damage to complex machinery. And of course, if it hits a large concentration of people, the shrapnel from the fragmentation can cause a great degree of damage. Then you have the body of the Shahed itself, which is made out of fiberglass. That means that it's both cheap to make, but it's also difficult to acquire by radar. The guidance of the Shahed can be guided actively, although that is somewhat hard for Iran because it requires a camera, and only a few are made with those because of sanctions. Iran's finding it hard to get those. So most of them are on a sort of inertial guidance. They're either using GPS, which I'm sure that there was extensive jamming. Jamming was reported, and so GPS may have been disabled, and that may have led to a lot of these going down. Or it has an active communications link, which it also is disrupted by electronic warfare jamming. Or it is just put on a dead reckoning. And if it's on a dead reckoning pattern, then it's, once you acquire it, you can shoot it down if need be.
David, just a final thought to you. So then, is the Iranian strategy militarily to overwhelm Israel's multi-layered air defense system? Because, of course, as you've been explaining to us, by using other aerial assets like missiles, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, in effect, the attack could be multi-layered as well.
Yeah. I think that if they want to have an effective attack, this is the way to do it. You have multiple targets going to the same place. What will be interesting to see is what they were actually targeting. If they were aiming to converge at one point, they have the possibility of truly overwhelming Israel, or if they're going from multiple areas towards one point. But if they're just making a demonstration attack, then what we will see when this is over is that there'll be a dispersed range of targets, and that these targets will not be high priority. So there'll be an analytical effort. I think that Israel will respond in some way, just because this is such a large attack on their sovereign terrain from Iran. And Iran, prior to this, have only really claimed one major drone attack that was on the Israeli consulate in Erbil. we'll have to see. But it's clearly trying to demonstrate that they can penetrate Israel's vaunted air defenses is one of the main goals of this attack.
All right, David DeRoche, Associate Professor at the National Defense University, joining us live there from Washington, D.C. David, thank you very much for staying with us throughout the night and giving us your military expertise on the developing story here of Iran's retaliatory attack against Israel. So to our viewers now, if you're just joining us here on Al Jazeera, it's just coming up to 0100 GMT. We're continuing with our special coverage of that retaliatory attack by Iran against Israel. Let's go to Gabriel Elizondo now at UN headquarters in New York. And Gabe, so we were talking to you earlier about the Israelis asking for a Security Council meeting. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, just within the last few minutes, we have been able to confirm that the UN Security Council will be holding an emergency meeting at 4 p.m. New York time on Sunday. That's 20 GMT. This information is confirmed by Malta, who holds the presidency of the Security Council for the month of April. They are confirming that they did receive this letter that was sent to the Secretary General and to the Security Council. This letter from the Israeli ambassador, Gilad Erdan, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Israel's formal request for an emergency Security Council meeting. But because Israel is not a member of the Security Council, it took another member of that council to also, sort of put forth this request. Malta has accepted it, and there will be an emergency UN Security Council meeting on Sunday. Again, that's 4 p.m. New York time. That's 20 GMT here at UN headquarters in Security Council chambers.
Yeah, Gabriel, and just a final thought to you. I mean, we were talking to you earlier that Israel is not a big fan of the UN. It seems quite ironic then that they're asking for UN intervention, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Israel has been very critical of the UN for a long time, quite frankly, but particularly in the last 6 months. But it's been personal critiques as well. It's Gilad Erdan, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, has actually called for Secretary General Antonio Guterres to resign in shame because of the way that Israel thinks he is mishandling the way the UN is dealing with Israel's war on Gaza. I mean, it's been very personal attacks against the Secretary General by Israel. Israel's clearly no fan of the Secretary General, obviously no fan of UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agent.
All right. Looks like it's last time's Iranian missiles interrupted. Looks like they're getting them all. Israeli, U.S., UK, and Jordanian forces shoot down missiles and drones from Iran. Do they consider this a success? think we fixed to go play play the video games. It looks like it's going to be not a lot of information coming in. Wait. I just have it paused.
Hey, thanks everybody. We're back. We are back. I really appreciate it.
So now it's just me. Oh, we're going live.
For decades, but what we're seeing tonight is different. Iran is directly attacking Israel instead of hiding behind proxies or using another militant group to attack Israel, therefore inviting Israel to retaliate directly on Iranian territory. It's important that Iran has said
This is very specifically for men over 30 years old who make at least 150 grand annually. If that
for 7 years.
said an Iranian state-run Tasnim news agency, they claimed that the missile and drone attacks were launched from positions in Iran, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. But I haven't heard Israel confirm that. It was just so strange when the attacks started. We heard that all these drones got launched at Israel from Iran, but then the reports quickly came out that they were expected to take several hours to arrive. Looks like the only thing that landed was a small number of missiles made it through. Check something here. Hold on. Hang on. Give me one moment. Appreciate you being with me for the coverage this evening. I want to show you some analysis from The Economist, which I really like. They say Iran attacks Israel, risking a full-blown regional war. Down here they say, even if the attack does not cause significant casualties, which it has not so far, or physical damage, which it has not so far, the implications are profound. After the Damascus strike, which is when Israel bombed a building at the Iranian consulate complex on April 1st, killing a number of Iranian officials. After the Damascus strike, Israeli security officials believed that Iran would not retaliate with its own forces in keeping with long-held policy. That assessment now seems to have been mistaken. The optimistic case is Iran is clumsily attempting a calibrated response that satisfies its pride and supporters. It took 2 weeks of deliberation to decide how to act after the embassy strike. It felt compelled to do something. After months of Israeli attacks on its forces in Syria and Lebanon, the targeting of senior Iranians in a diplomatic building seemed an unacceptable escalation. Some Iranian officials were nervous about a direct attack on Israel, but hardliners wanted to hit directly rather than acting through proxies. Following the launch of the drones, Iran's permanent mission to the UN invoked its right of self-defense and said that the matter can be deemed concluded. Yet because a direct Iranian attack on Israel crosses a new line, I believe that had never happened before, in a direct strike from Iranian territory to Israeli territory. Because a direct Iranian attack on Israel crosses a new line, says The Economist, Israel will probably be forced to retaliate. Any normalization of direct strikes by Iran is intolerable to the Israeli public and leadership. Prime Minister Netanyahu made a televised statement before the drones were launched. He said, "I have set a clear principle. Those who harm us, we harm them." Israel has already informed the Americans and governments in the region that the response is inevitable. Its military operations include launching drones at Iran. Its military options include launching drones at Iran and long-range airstrikes on Iran, possibly on military bases or nuclear installations. It is less likely that Israel would launch missiles from its submarines, which are reserved for the most serious confrontations. Okay? Whether Mr. Biden is prepared to support Israeli retaliation is a different matter. Okay. The prospect of a full-blown war involving America, Iran, and Israel is terrifying. The most expedient outcome, says The Economist, for everyone involved is that the Iranian barrage is shot down and causes little damage, which it has so far. Israel could avoid casualties, which it has so far, except for one casualty, it sounds like, and the need for a large-scale response. Iran could claim it sent a strong message without inviting major attacks on its own soil, and America could avoid being drawn into a foreign war. Yet in a region that is now on fire, the scenario is far from guaranteed. If you want to read the whole story, go to The Economist. You can check it out there. It's called Iran Attacks Israel, Risking a Full-Blown Regional War. But, you know, something to watch for is, as you heard the article say, Netanyahu's on record as saying he's going to respond to something like this. The article says the Israeli public's going to demand some sort of response. But could Israel do some sort of response that satisfies the Israeli public and shows that they're not going to let this kind of stuff slide, but doesn't cause things to escalate further? I don't know, you know? So how is, if Israel does launch some sort of strike, they can't just do, you know, remember, Israel in the past, they'll like launch some kind of strike on some infrastructure that Iranian proxies are using somewhere or other, you know, they can do things like that, or launch strikes on Iranian forces who might be in Syria or something. But if Israel's going to respond to this, it would seem like they would need to launch some sort of strike directly on Iranian at Iranian.
Yeah, that's what they need to do, and they need to make sure it lands.
Going to do that
to show that
in a way that doesn't greatly escalate the situation further and forces Iran to respond. I don't know.
They should do it like maybe outside the country, like not outside the country, but outside of the city. There's like population. Take out like something that's well guarded, but
and when,
and just to prove that you can do it, and that does not mess with us, because you shot hundreds of stuff at us and only one or two got through, and we'll take you out. That's what they should do.
That's the live shot of Tel Aviv right there you're looking at.
Yeah, you left us on this one for a long time since I paused it.
Oops, what is this? Hey guys, look at this. This is interesting. Faytux News found this. Check this out. I don't know about these reports like this. So Faytux found this report from Itay Blumenthal, who said in Israel, drones that have not yet been intercepted are being prepared for the next hour of arrival. So I guess what that would mean is maybe there are still drones in the air. I could see that being the case. That's from Itay Blumenthal from Channel 11 Khan News. So maybe there are still drones in the air that haven't been taken out yet. I don't know. There was also this thing that I've seen like this, that there's like an interception outside the atmosphere.
And the real ones yet to come.
Supposedly. So Manny Fabian posted this, for example. He said, very unique footage showing an exo-atmospheric interception amid the Iranian ballistic missile attack. So I believe the ballistic missiles, they go outside the atmosphere and come back in. So this would be that they're intercepted outside the atmosphere, I believe the idea is. He says, very unique footage showing an exo-atmospheric interception of an Iranian amid the Iranian ballistic missile attack, likely by the Arrow 3 air defense system. I'm just playing it again and again. It's really interesting. And then OSINT Technical, who I follow, posted another video saying additional clearer video footage of Israel Arrow anti-ballistic missile conducting an exo-atmospheric space kill on an Iranian ballistic missile earlier tonight. Interesting. Yes, there are some rocket alerts right now. I'm seeing a couple rocket alerts right now. Thanks for mentioning that in the chat. There are a couple rocket alerts. There's one in Sneer, which is in northern Israel, and also Sderot, Ibim, and Nir Am. No, it's just Sneer. Is Sneer the one right now? I think it's just Sneer, which is in northern Israel. If I have that right. Let me see if I can double check that. Yes, this is right here, in the Golan Heights. So I don't know, there's been plenty of rockets fired at Israel over the last month. So I don't know if these air raid sirens in the Golan Heights, I don't have a live shot of the Golan Heights. That's right next to Syria, so near Lebanon. So I don't know those air raid sirens going off. I can't say what exactly is up with that. Are there more rockets being fired in that area right now? Don't know. Israel War Room posted that. That's a graphic showing you where that is. But it's in the Golan Heights would be, I'll show you on a map where it is. We want to Sneer Israel. To Sneer Israel. There. Sneer Israel. Northern Israel. Near Lebanon and Syria. That's where the rocket alert is. So I don't know any. I'll see if I get you some details on that. Oh, this is interesting here. Hang on, guys. I just saw something.
Okay, let's see it.
So Amakai Stein posted this. He is with Khan News. Okay? So this is a post from Khan News, Amakai Stein. He says, security officials in Israel estimate that most of the Iranian reaction is behind us, but they still did not announce it was over, according to Itay Blumenthal, who was also with Khan News. Security officials in Israel estimate that most of the Iranian reaction is behind us, but they still do not announce that it is over. Yeah, and you can see rocket siren sound in the Golan Heights. That's from Haaretz. We just showed you that. But I'll keep you posted, let you know what I hear. No U.S. bases were attacked. No U.S. bases were attacked. There's been no reliable sourcing whatsoever saying any U.S. base was attacked.
I don't think they would attack the U.S. base since they told the U.S. to stay away. They would have never said that.
BNO News Live says, Iran state TV showing, quote, aftermath from Iranian attack on Israel, but it's actually just footage from Texas wildfires.
Wow. That's interesting.
Hang on one moment.
You can't fool people on the internet.
One moment, please. A quick thank you to, just to thank a few people. Klinsky, is it? Hang on a second here. Just want to thank a couple people here. Klinsky, UC2, Jeannie Sparks, Lying Dog Face, Ron Shedden, Kimberly Olsons, Stinky Megatron, Pixel Pando, Paul G, NorCal, LB, iCup, Stargazer, Calling in Georgia, Big Jim, Relax with Joe, Jenny Lassiter, Mark Rich, Rumi. While I have a second here, Fleagelsgal, Esley Worthington, General Pardilhan Laggy, Mike Retroman, Gregory Pym, Shadows, and others for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, normally I apologize for not thanking everybody individually. It's been such a busy stream that I was just been so focused on getting the updates out. So I apologize that I haven't been thanking everybody individually, but I really appreciate your allowing the channel to exist. I haven't heard anything more about. Oh, Khan News said the alarms, the rocket alerts in the Golan Heights that happened about 10 minutes ago. Khan News says that was a result of firing from Lebanon. Maybe rockets were being fired from Lebanon. I believe earlier tonight, hours ago, rocket alerts went off in the same area because Hezbollah said they fired like dozens of rockets. So that might not be part of the Iran attack, or maybe it's somewhat related, but I haven't heard of any kind of significant damage or anything from the rocket alerts from 10 minutes ago or so in the Golan Heights. Oh, hold on. Is there something else? Is there another report of some? Yes, it is 4:26 a.m. Hang on. 4:26 a.m. Israel time.
Spit it out, and then we're about done.
Will there be, Oh, Haaretz just posted this. Hey guys, check this out. This is from Haaretz right now, 5 minutes ago. I thought they spoke earlier. Haaretz, Prime Minister's office, Israel Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu is speaking with President Biden now. I thought they spoke, Fox said they spoke like an hour ago. Anyways, Haaretz, which is an Israeli paper, says President Biden is speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at this time. Yes, right here, look. Times of Israel, same thing. Netanyahu speaking with Biden by phone. Prime Minister Netanyahu is currently on the phone with U.S. President Biden after wrapping up Security Cabinet and War Cabinet meetings at the IDF's military headquarters, his office says. Hang on one moment here. I wonder if that's the second time they've spoken tonight. Thanks to Andrew B. As well. Hey guys, this is a new report from Reuters. Check this out. Idris Ali. Israel's military said on Sunday it was not advising any residents of the country to prepare to take shelter, revising an earlier alert. Yeah, you know, this is old though. And what appeared to be the signal, I think this is just what Home Front Command, we told you like 45 minutes ago, Home Front Command told people you no longer have to remain near your shelter. So I think that's what Reuters is talking about here. Israel's military said it was not advising any residents of the country to prepare to take shelter, revising an earlier alert in what appeared to be the signal the end of the threat seen from incoming Iranian missiles and drones. That's what we've been talking about the last hour or so, that the Home Front Command had told Israelis you don't have to stay near your shelter, but they haven't said the attack is over.
I think it's about over. Alright. So we're going to end the stream here. We're going to pick back up with the game stuff.
But that's what that suggests.
Because
the Home Front Command in Israel lifting.
Yeah, if they're telling the people to go, they can go and do their own thing.
Stay near their shelters would suggest
they're not worried.
Now the attack is over. That's what it would suggest. Here is the post from the Prime Minister of Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu is currently speaking with U.S. President Biden following the deliberations of the Security Cabinet and the War Cabinet. They've been up all night there. It is 4:32 a.m. 4:32 a.m. That is a live shot of Tel Aviv on your screen. Thank you to Smallest Violin. I believe Iran makes the drones. Iran supplies drones to Russia. I believe Iran makes their drones that they use.
Yeah, they do.
I can't be sure what was used here, but they're known for making drones. Thanks also, Mediocritish.
If anything pops up, I'll let you know.